welcome to our first meeting for 2025 and our first SAP meeting. We don't have everyone present, we're just possibly waiting for counts on the wire. I'll just do our live stream. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with the Council's live streaming and recording of public meetings policy. There is. To those present in the gallery today, which there is none, by attending this public meeting of Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. Sorry, good, just started. Everyone's here, so no apologies, no one's on leave. Is there any members' declarations of interest? No, there is nobody in the public forum. Item 3 is the confirmation of meeting minutes from our last meeting, which were held on the 10th of September. Can I please have someone move and second those meeting minutes are an accurate record? Councillor Ross, Councillor Dennis. All those in favour? Carried. There's no matters laid on the table, so we'll get straight into it. So item 5.1 is our sealed footpath replacement. I'll hand over to Mr. Wilsmore.
Thank you. So this report's been brought to the SAP to review our future works for our sealed footpath replacements. So to make sure our long-term financial plans and works planning align with elected members' directions. So we've got a number of full-width sealed footpaths within the district. Our current council footpath policy states spray seal footpaths will not be encouraged but may be used as a temporary surface. So we wanted to identify what replacement material we would look at doing in future years when we come up to replace these full-width sealed footpaths. I've provided 3 different options. So option 1 is to reseal the existing footpath. So this would be the most cost-effective option. However, this would not meet Council's current policy. Option 2 will be the 1.5 metre wide concrete or asphalt footpath set back from the curb with grass infill. This meets policy, however, increases annual maintenance work, being additional lawns to mow and maintain. Or option 3, full width concrete and asphalt footpath to match existing width. This is the highest cost option, but reduced annual maintenance. I've also provided a comparison between asphalt footpaths and concrete footpaths, and then a whole of life comparison. So you'll see, based on our endorsed unit rates within our AMPs, the spray seal footpath is significantly cheaper than an asphalt or a concrete footpath, but with a reduced expected useful lives and higher maintenance expenditure. So we've provided a recommendation that all existing full-width spray seal footpaths are retained as spray seal footpaths, and the footpath policy is updated. But happy to take questions on the report.
Are there any questions, Mr. Wilsmore? Patrick?
So, Mr. Wilsmore, thank you. I note that you've given us the unit rate and the expected maintenance level and also the useful life, but you haven't sort of given us, you know, what that financial implication might be over the useful life or how that might be extrapolated.
Yeah, I didn't do that because it's relative to the surroundings or what's adjacent to the footpath, for example. So if there's trees next to the footpath, that would further increase the maintenance requirements. So I think it would skew the figures disproportionately if I was to provide maintenance rates like that. So that's why I provided the expected maintenance level as a range, so medium to high, medium to low, because to do that would probably skew the figures and wouldn't provide a useful information for members.
Just in relation to the maintenance as well, so with the increasing the expected life expectancy of the footpath, would that in turn, like a tree, whereas a spray seal might flex and the repair's easier, or would an asphalt or a concrete smash and crack, or is that?
So they'll all crack. It would take longer. So the spray seal would crack and move quicker because it's not a structural surface. Asphalt is treated as a structural surface, so it wouldn't show the movement from the ground or the roots as quick as spray seal, and then concrete is stronger again. So it would take longer before you'd see evidence of the root ingress. When we do, as members are aware, when we do our concrete footpaths, when we're in the structural root zone of a tree, we do a permeable paver there to assist with that maintenance. So if that allows moisture through the ground to stop the roots looking for moisture and coming to the surface, it also allows us to pull up pavers and relay them as opposed to cutting and repouring concrete in those examples.
One more question. Thank you, Mr. Wilsmore. Just in relation to maintenance, say that sort of snaky repair that we do when it cracks, wouldn't it be more aesthetically pleasing to do a spray seal repair and just spray the whole footpath and make it look the same as the rest of it? Because at $28 a metre, square metre, it just, I suppose, over that snaky, like that appearance there, what's the, if we factored in to make it more aesthetically pleasing, maybe a policy that we do, once cracks appear to that level, we do just do another seal.
Yeah, so that's an asphalt surface, not a spray seal surface.
Right.
You could overlay it with a spray seal surface, but then you get a harder texture, so the exposed aggregate texture surface. So that there's probably is too far gone, and you probably would look at replacing and relaying an asphalt surface there. So
Yes.
the crack sealing, which is that polymer that we put down to seal the cracks, that does last for a while, but as you can see in that photo, some of the cracks have opened up again. So that was undertaken approximately 14, 15 years ago, and they're starting to open up again.
Yep.
So, Mr. Wilsmore, Memorial Street, or Memorial Drive, the asphalt paving there, how long's that been down that one?
That's a spray seal.
That's a spray seal?
I couldn't guess off the top of my head, but
Because that's in serious need of some.
yeah.
Lovely
Yep. So
attention.
that's Cedar Avenue Memorial, probably the first one to be looking at, which is triggered the need for this report. So that's Memorial Drive's got other issues. There's stubby poles directly in the middle of the footpath and the lights that we'd have to deal with. But again, that's a spray sealed surface. It could get swept or resealed, or we look at doing a concrete or asphalt surface, depending on direction.
Just an aside, completely off of that, I'd just like to congratulate the staff on the paving that they've done on Jenkins Terrace. It's been done fairly quickly and it looks fantastic. So,
Pass that on.
Yeah, a few points. I did find it hard to compare pricing because with whole life cost comparisons without that maintenance component, it's not comparing apples with apples. But my question is, do you know when those footpaths that are highlighted in the map were put down as spray seal or asphalt? Was that part of a broader strategy, or is just that's what we did at the time? And I guess following on from that, in terms of updating the policy, I was wondering, rather than just saying we retain spray seal where we currently do, is there a good reason to consider approaching the footpath policy perhaps in the same way we do the road policy, where we have hierarchies, and thinking forward to future footpaths that we put in, thinking about ones that are in high traffic or commercial areas where we want them aesthetically pleasing, that we go with paving, then in other areas concrete, and then maybe in lower usage areas or more linkages, then we consider the asphalt. Just thinking about that as a policy change moving forward.
Yeah, that's certainly something we can include within the policy review. Well, similar to the urban footpath strategy that was endorsed a couple of years ago, that was based on the adjacent road hierarchy. So we've identified that in terms of treatments and where footpaths may be installed in future years. So that could be built on from a service level point of view as well. In terms of the age of the various footpaths, I can provide that information at a later date, but I'd have to take that on notice.
Mr. Wills, I was just going to say, Councillor Goodman's taken the words out of my mouth to some degree. My default position is to absolutely improve our assets as a number one priority, all of our assets. But yes, can another layer be included into the policy which refers to usage and where it is in relation to, say, the CBD, to get a better feel for a concrete versus a spray seal or an asphalt.
Can I just ask, these ones that are flagged are the high usage, high traffic ones that are in the map currently?
They're not within the CBD, but they
Not
are on.
they, are they?
Yeah, they are on some of. So
Well utilised.
McDonald Street, for example, is an entry into Naracoorte CBD. Smith Street, entry into Naracoorte CBD.
Memorial
So
Drive, Cedar Ave,
Yep.
all of those, Park Terrace where a school is, they're all very high trafficked areas. Councillor Rayner?
Mr. Wills, well, when you get where the ground moves and there's tree roots, do you consider paving?
we do, as I said, with the concrete footpaths, we do pave around the structural root area for that very reason. In terms of paving, the policy identifies CBD retail areas would pave, so we'd look at doing that for the Naracoorte CBD, Musgrave Avenue in Lucendale, for example. Spray seal does flex a bit more, as I mentioned before, so it can repair itself to a limited extent, but solid roots would still crack and expose the pavement. So, yeah, we do consider ground conditions when we look at planning the works.
Just a question to Mr. Wilsmore, that's just for me to get a picture. The path that's in front of where the train is it called Pioneer Park?
Yep,
Pioneer Park, and then it runs down to Corner Grounds Cafe. The Corner Grounds Cafe looks like that's a spray seal, so it's sort of loose gravel. Is the Pioneer Park one spray seal?
Yep, that's a spray seal footpath.
So without wanting to box you in for future, if the traffic there increased and or it was due for renewal and we wanted to make the Corner Grounds Cafe a better surface, and the policy is that all spray seals be respray sealed, is there flexibility so that we could give consideration of improving in front of a business that wasn't there that's now open, as in concrete or paving or some other thing? I'm happy to go with recommendations around the policy, but I don't want us to box you in.
Yep.
In future, if the usage that changes and it's actually a more high traffic, high usage area.
So there's certainly, you always have the opportunity to change direction, particularly through our annual budget process. If we get direction at spray seal or concrete, whatever it is, that will be budgeted and forecast out when we come to the annual budget and we say we're doing McDonald Street. To continue your example, we as in staff can either identify that as an upgrade to pavers, for example, or elected members can rightfully request a change too. So McDonald Street, Pioneer Park, you mentioned that as an example. The section in front of Pioneer Park will be paved. That's been endorsed as part of the Pioneer Park master plan, so that was captured as a tourist area, recreational area, so it would pave that section. That doesn't continue all the way down to Corner Ground, so that's one of the footpaths that we've identified.
Probably highlighting all the sentiment here. Essentially, these are all high traffic volume roads because they were the first ones done. So essentially, if you're looking to try to put this in a hierarchy, this is actually probably one of the higher ones because that's how they were the first ones that were done. So realistically, what we probably should be doing is in these particular roads, our pathways, we probably should be looking at probably changing it. Really, to be honest, it probably shouldn't be spray sealed. It probably should be something that is better. It might mean that we change the policy here to change the width, because they are the high volume traffic pathways. So I would say I would be looking at probably some more information in regards to what the costings will be to potentially change these pathways from spray seal. To be honest, that's my thoughts.
For width, so option 3.
Yeah, well, you look at it; they're high volume traffic, especially the Cedar Ave. You've got school kids walking down there as well. So. They're all hot. They were the original ones, so I think we should probably be looking at changing.
I did have a conversation with Mr. Wilson this morning, asking similar questions. I guess we haven't got it perfect, but it's pretty close. If you look around where the spray seal is, the surfaces that it has been used on, let's use Jenkins Terrace as an example, where we've got active soil, Sandstone Avenue. A lot of the places the council has chosen to go that cheaper option is because of the active soil, Memorial Drive with the trees. So we haven't got it perfect, but it's pretty close. You know, there's no use spending extra money on concrete where it's going to move. It's much easier to patch and fix the spray. If you look at Jenkins Terrace footpath, yeah, it's got snakes all over it. It's been patched, but that will continue to move. So why would we sort of upgrade that? I think Naracoorte, the way it's structured with our soil types and sand, we're probably fairly limited to what surfaces we put in certain places.
I think from the feedback I've had in the community, and I'm probably talking more around your Cedar Avenue Memorial Drive, is that those spray seals are very rough. And when you've got lots of kids' bikes, there's been many kids that have fallen off, and especially Memorial Drive being on a hill too. I would personally like to see that minimum asphalt for that smoother sort of surface. And in some instances, preferably concrete. I understand it's a more expensive option, but I think that spray seal is a really rough finish, and when it is high traffic, whether it's kids on bikes or people walking with prams, I think just at the front of McDonald Street playground's a prime example. That's just so up and down because that spray seal has just cracked and lifted, and tree roots. So I know tree roots are a hard one, but yeah, I feel like a minimum the asphalt would be my priority. My preference. Councillor Dennis?
Can we fold out the three options over the red areas and have a number? Good notice?
Another question. The pathways in Lucendale that go along Gum Avenue down to the school, is that spray seal there? And I guess just in line, you know, would that be, we're thinking that we would treat that in a similar way to the red highlighted footpaths
Correct.
here?
So they're currently spray seal footpath, that's correct. So we've budgeted that in our long-term financial plan for a concrete replacement, but yeah, currently that's a spray seal footpath.
I just have one more question. I noticed in the city where there's tree problems, some councils use that recycled rubber like you have in playgrounds. Is that an expensive option to put around trees, or a good option, bad option compared to paving, or is it something we've looked at and we wouldn't consider for various reasons?
Yeah, we certainly looked at it. We believe we're getting better results out of the permeable pavers, so that rubber, you'll see trees still come up and search for water. The benefit of it, you peel it back, cut the root down and put it back down. It's one way to treat it, but you're still getting the roots searching for moisture. So we think using the permeable pavers allows that moisture in and prevents the roots from searching for moisture less compared to sealing it up. So we reviewed this a number of years ago, and we went down that permeable paver option. So.
Thanks.
Mr. Willsmore, there seem to be, this has been a great topic, and there seems to be more questions than answers, especially around, how we progress forward with concrete and full width, etc. But I'm happy with the recommendation. I'm happy to move that, but it has arisen from tonight's conversation that there are many questions around, how we actually go about our ongoing footpaths, policy and hierarchies and all sorts of questions, that there's quite a bit of work to be done. But I'm happy to move that full width spray sealed footpaths are retained as spray sealed footpaths and the footpath policy be updated.
Move that. Do I have to second that? Councillor Dennis?
No.
All right, we have a mover and a seconder. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour? Carried.
Yeah, so we're still updating the policy, so we can, Councillor Goodman's suggestions about a hierarchy, we can include that within the policy review as well.
Excellent, thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to item 5.2, Musgrave Avenue 70% design. Mr Willsmore.
Thank you. So this has just been brought back for members' information and direction on a couple of items. So 70% design's been received. There's a couple of items that we're seeking feedback on. So similar to the Naracoorte Town Centre Rejuvenation Plan, we've retained the trees and would look at repairing and replacing the curb as needed. Curbing will be replaced effectively like for like, or slight adjustment to improve drainage. The only section where the curbing would change fairly substantially is in front of the deli section of Musgrave Avenue. So we've discussed this on a number of occasions about the width of the footpath there and vehicles overhanging the curb. The designers come back with a suggestion of a outer standard curb, so a 230mm curb and gutter. So the benefit of this, it prevents your smaller vehicles from overhanging the footpath with their bonnet or rear of their car, depending on how they're parked. It still does allow larger vehicles the option to overhang that footpath if needed, but that extra height, so a typical curb is about 150mm high, so 230 is a fair increase. The design still includes some bollards within the footpath section, which would push the four drives, utes, etc., further away from the curb, further opening that footpath. One of the questions we want comment on was if we are going the higher curb, do we still want to install bollards or monitor the area once the works have been carried out? The bollards just would impact on the width of the footpath again. Then we've just identified, or the designers identified some concerns with the formalising the long vehicle truck parking along Gum Avenue. So this was discussed at one of the street walk arounds we did with the community, but they've raised concerns about non-compliant side distance from the intersections for vehicles turning onto Gum Avenue from Musgrave Avenue or Railway Terrace. We provided some photos of the trucks parking there, and you can see it does limit the side distance. Doesn't mean we can't progress and develop the design further, but that would involve Department of Infrastructure and Transport consultation, and the thoughts are it'd be unlikely that they'd support those parking bays. So happy to take questions, but the recommendation is that further development of the designated gravel pull-off areas on Gum Avenue is not undertaken and the informal areas remain, with Council acknowledging intersection site distance restrictions, and Council endorses the 70% design of Musgrave Avenue with the removal of all documented bollards and proceeds to deed consultation and final design documentation. Happy to take questions on the report.
Questions? Councillor Goodman?
Yeah, I guess some comments and feedback. I spent some time talking to business owners in the main street and people who had attended the walk around that was held last year. I think people can see where the feedback and discussion that was had at the walk around has been included into the design that's been presented. However, overall, people were not satisfied with what's been presented. I think the parking outside the deli, there was not support for raising the curb height as suggested. It just feels like that's a way of damaging people's vehicles, and the strong support was for the roll concrete bars that people's tyres go up against, like is at Foodland and Woolworths, understanding that that doesn't make it easy for the street sweeper, but there's other ways of doing that, and it's only a small section. I think people really did want crossings across the main street of Musgrave Avenue, but they were also very vehemently clear that they did not want the width of the street encroached upon, and the design as it currently shows would have major implications for big machinery moving down the main street, which is what the residents of Lucindale value, make it very difficult for big trucks, air seeders, silos, and particularly traffic that goes along through for the field days. And people really do want those truck pullouts, and when we were asked last year there was some money for an upgrade, what was it that people were after? That was what was nominated, is those truck pullouts. They get used really frequently. I note the concerns, but I just wonder, I just think it's worth revisiting that to see if there are ways around that to make the pull-off wider so that the site clearances are different and the overhead power lines are the same height as the ones that the trucks go under anyway. And so I would like to suggest that rather than continually going on loops of consultation with the community, we have heard what they're after, and I'd like to suggest that we consider forming a working group consisting of some administration and elected members to work on this 70% design and bring it back to a SAP meeting in May.
Thank you.
Councillor Crosland, yes, I agree. I mean, the feedback I've had is that these protuberances are potentially excessive. Fuel bins, air seeders and that sort of thing. There's a T-junction there which naturally tends to slow the traffic. If there needs to be a designated walkway, can't it be just painted onto the road? I get that there's a handrail required sometimes, but maybe this is not the example for it. The high curb, I don't think people will be in favour of that high curb with potentially damage to vehicles. I don't think the local residents would think that it was a good idea that councillors had endorsed that. And the car parks, after having spoken to several people, that the car parks are probably overly narrow as well. So to that end, I agree with Councillor Goodman's sentiment, and that is, I get the feeling that we're sort of going around in circles to some degree, which is frustrating for administration as well as the Lucindale residents, and I tend to think that perhaps some Lucindale representatives from the elected member body would have a good handle on what the community there actually do want, and maybe a small working group that's informal and temporary in nature might have been able to bring something back to council that the Lucindale community was happy with.
Mr. Willsmore, I think this is progressing pretty well. We keep on getting all these great graphics, which is fantastic. Has any of this been to DID at all at this stage?
No, I wouldn't take it to DID until the elected members endorse it.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And further, I note the crossing. Does DID allow the zebra crossing where, someone steps onto the road and the traffic halts for the pedestrian?
Yeah, they do. There's a maximum length that is required before you provide another shelter, so that would involve protuberances as well. So elected members will recall back in July 2023, there was a couple of concept designs provided for review which had parallel parking, which reduced the length of the protuberances, but the elected members directed us to provide angled car parking, so then that increases the width of the protuberance. So we've discussed heavy vehicle access multiple times, and this is the design that has been endorsed through the master plan to provide. So we can keep changing the design, it all has a cost. It's no different to the Naracoorte CBD or Rejuve. We need to be clear to the designers what we want, because if I go back to them saying, we want to modify the design, they'll rightfully put their hand out for a variation of the contract. So
I do like the protuberance and allowing for disability, disabled drivers. I think that's a real benefit. I must admit the 150mm raised curb for those less able in our community is always going to become, an issue. as we age together and, can't lift our feet quite as high as others. And so there's, we need to be considering those people who are less able in our community, I believe, when it comes to, especially adjacent to, retail areas where they're going to be getting in and out of vehicles and having to get up on the curb. So I do concur with Councillor Goodman about the wheel stoppers and not the bollard, which I think encroaches on the footpath per se, as a reasonable thing to do.
Okay. Councillor Damien?
Mr Willsmore, with the protuberances, I mean, that's one of the things that was put to me from some of the listener people. They do not want their street encroached on. Is it possible to do that where the edges are made in such a way that heavy machinery or whatever can run over them without?
It's possible to do that, but that defeats the purpose. So they're there to shelter pedestrians so they feel safe and have less distance to cross the road. So those larger protuberance from the deli, that is flush with the road, but there's a fence to go around it, so there's protection for pedestrians. So, yep, we did get some feedback that people didn't want protuberances, but we did get a lot of feedback that people wanted safe across the road. So that was the key feedback from one of the walkthroughs about the crossings and where they wanted them located. So protuberances are there for the safety of the pedestrians, not for vehicles using the road.
Councillor Hart?
Thanks, Councillor Crossan. Mr Wilson, I agree with the conversation from many of the elected members tonight about concerns over height of curbs, the protuberances, especially that mid-lane one that's likely to cause problems for wide equipment coming through for the field goes, etc. I think that definitely needs to be looked at as to ways around that. And the parking, as far as looking ahead for the future, I mean, all our vehicles are getting bigger all the time, and I mean, if that can be looked at as whether we can widen some of those parks, and all of these things are just things that need to be just refined before we progress, I think. And I'm not sure about Councillor Goodman's option of a working group or something, but we just need to tidy it up.
No? Councillor Town?
With the protuberance, is it necessary or a legal requirement to have the big bulky thing in the middle? Can you not have a protuberance coming out from each side of the curb and then stripes across the road? I notice when we go through Edenhope, we've got, it's a small town, but they've got yellow lights, and it's a pedestrian crossing. I've never found a pedestrian crossing when I've ever driven through, but I wonder whether there's a better treatment that doesn't inhibit the middle space of the road. I think that's probably where the issue is. Having a wide protuberance does narrow the road down, and it indicates to the driver that there's an area of narrowness and slow down. But I wonder whether the treatment of either yellow flashing lights or stripes across the road or a combination of both, but some way of getting rid of the middle part. And I would tend to agree that the tyre things that stop cars going forward with would be a better option, given that's a small area. And if you do protuberance, you're going to have trouble getting a street sweeper in there anyway without reversing out. So, a blower vac's probably going to do the job for a few times a year because it's not really a dirty, leafy place, and that would reduce the height of the curb and the need for bollards. So my 2 points would be, I'd agree that if we're going to do angle parking there with Councillor Ireland, that take one out and make them wider for all vehicles are going to get bigger in the future rather than smaller. 2, could we get rid of the middle part of the protuberance using a different method? And 3, I think we could do a treatment with a standard curb and tyre stoppers and no bollards, and manually clean that with the blower vac if need be.
Yeah.
Which are all tweaks, which could come out of this working group that Councillor Goodman's suggesting, and it could be small and efficient. And I understand that we sometimes we get boxed in because there are certain requirements that tick the boxes for DIT, make it easy to get it through. But really, the 1 or 2% of need is in the communities for someone to walk across the road safely, and probably the 90+% is for big vehicles to go through there regularly. We've got to account for both, but I think ratepayers would consider it maybe over the top and not good use of money without the full understanding of that. So I think could we just push back and find a way of achieving that crossing safely without the bit in the middle?
Yeah, that's a standard DIT design. So, but as Mayor Ross pointed out, we can go back to them and discuss zebra crossings with them as well. So we can discuss that and review other options that will still meet DIT requirements to sign off the design.
I think we've been to the community enough on this, and I think bringing in outside a working group isn't the correct way to go. I think if there's things that we want changed on this plan, I think this chamber talks to enough people that we could actually come up with that ourselves. But I think going back to the community is it the third time that we've gone? I'm talking. You can. So is it the third time we've been to the community? So anyway, that's just my opinion. I get, but I can also see, do we just get rid of the crossing altogether because the road is so wide? There must be legal reasons to have a crossing. I'm sure there is. DTI have got reasons behind that, but either way, my final statement behind this is just the way we're sort of focusing our direction, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, just saying this council is focusing its direction onto roads, and we have put the line through the Naracoorte Rejuve plan in a lot of cases in the budget. My question to the chamber is, if we come back at let's just pull a figure of a $1.2 million spend on this, is this chamber, is this elected body going to follow it through, or are we going to waste more time on designs, more time for the staff, lead the community on? Because that's what we have actually done in a lot of other projects. We have put design after design, and then we just put them on the back burner and on the back burner. So I would be brave enough to say we need to make a decision. If this comes back and this is what we want, first of all, is this chamber going to actually follow it through and put it in the budget, or are we just going to say we can't afford it, like we have with the Naracoorte Rejuve plan? And I think the comments came from 3 elected members. Is it a need or a want? So I'm not saying this is a bad idea. I actually support it, but are we wasting everybody's time?
Before we go on, I want to just touch on a couple of points. So the curbing, we're not, obviously I'm getting the vibe that we're not in agreement with a high curb. It's more the wheel stop sort of concrete option. The pedestrian crossing, you've got that to go back to see if possibly we can remove the middle section or a zebra crossing. That's what I'm getting. Machinery movement, I think that I understand it's a rural community, but I also look at the map and go, people can go down Gum Ave, around Centenary Ave, and then back onto Musgrave. But that's not, to me, a reason to not have pedestrian crossings. We've got them in the main street of Naracoorte, and things get through here. Normally those bits of steel are removable, is that correct? For vehicles, wider vehicles to be able to get through, but there is also a way to get around without using Musgrave Ave. So I think we've had that feedback from the community that they wanted pedestrian crossing. So I think we still need to obviously look at those options and whether it is a zebra one. The truck pull-out that Councillor Goodman just mentioned, I think we've obviously, it's in the minutes there that if we go to DIT with wanting to formalise them, they're going to come back with a hard no, easy. Am I wrong in saying that?
That's what our assumption is.
Yeah. So I don't know what the feeling in the room is, that you either leave it, I'm sure the truck drivers are still happy to pull up on some dirt, and my other concern is if you start to formalise things like that, do they start getting used with caravanners and then they're not open to the trucks when they need it? I don't know, just a thought. And then obviously the bigger car parks is the other one. So making those angle car parks a little bit bigger, can that possibly be done?
Yep.
Councillor Rayner?
There. Can I talk on that?
Yep, go for it.
while you're under detail, could you ask to see if that Kingston sign could be moved further south to improve that there, the parking, and it also improve the drainage? If that sign could go the other side of that intersection.
Yes, we can.
Councillor Ross.
What's the distance between the T-junction and where the pedestrian crossing is going to potentially be? Because is there restrictions on having zebra crossings for an intersection?
Yeah, so that's been moved down to allow vehicles, so
So
street paths have been done.
But if you go to a zebra crossing, because that's different to what that pedestrian crossing is,
Yeah,
that would still be within the right.
it'd be part of my discussions we did when we look at a zebra crossing.
Yeah, because I think that was one of the issues with zebra crossings in the main street of Naracoorte, is that in the close proximity of the roundabout, is it was going to restrict what you could actually have there.
Yep.
So.
Sorry, Councillor Goodman, historically I thought that we couldn't have zebra crossings in Naracoorte because it was 2 lanes each way, and there's a width, you can have a zebra crossing across the road. So we couldn't, back then we couldn't have the zebra crossing because the width of the road was too great.
Yeah, it's correct. I mentioned that before. There's a maximum width of between protuberances for a zebra crossing, so.
I think we'd have the same problem in Lucendale.
Still suggest we'd still have to put protuberance in even if we do a zebra crossing, but I can have some discussions with Did and come back with that information.
Councillor Grundy.
Crosland, look, obviously Councillor Maguire's frustrated. He's just as frustrated as a lot of others. I think that this item has raised more questions than answers, and I wasn't proposing that a small working group go back to the public. I think that's been done to death. A small working group that could work with Mr Willsmore to tighten up this proposal. What's been questioned and answered tonight for the benefit of the administration has been relatively incoherent, I think, and a small working group to work with Mr Willsmore ready for the next SAP meeting I think is appropriate. To that end, I'd like to change the motion or the recommendation at some point during the meeting.
Councillor Goodman, did you want to speak or no?
I was going to move a motion.
Did you want to say something before we move?
No, I was going to make some commentary, and what I do know is that there are people who work every day right there on the street, and they see what's going on a daily basis, and perhaps, you know, that commentary, which may not have been heard during a walk around, may actually may be valuable for a discussion with, you know, Mr Willsmore, to give him, you know, some added insight into what the dynamic of, you know, vehicle traffic looks like, you know, through someone's eyes who's looking out the window every day.
Do you feel you had that with this walk around?
We had that with the walk around. We got staff who live in Lucendale who provide that too. So I've got plenty of photos of trucks parking in front of the deli and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got that information, but just because that's what happens doesn't mean that meets any sort of design standard either. So we still got to, if we're doing an upgrade, we need to make sure we're compliant, which comes in the side distance and protuberances just to block off angle car parking and the like too. So there's a number of standards that we need to achieve.
I want to get a feeling in the room. We've gone through all those things just previously, what I just stated. There was the wheel stops, the different maybe pedestrian crossing, the truck pull out, the sign, bigger car parks. I don't agree with going to working groups. I think that's just making it harder for the administration. I think we've got feedback in the room from everyone. Is everyone happy that Mr Willsmore has a grasp of what the feeling is, or does anyone want to add anything more to what we want the administration to go away with and actually have a look and bring back? Councillor Goodman?
I'd like to move that a working group consisting of a member of administration and 3 elected members, happy to have input on that, is formed to provide input into the Musgrave Avenue upgrade, and a amended design be presented back to the next SAP meeting.
I'll second that.
Did you have that written down?
Yep.
By email to me. Oh. Read it out.
So I say there's 70% design, but that may not be appropriate. Happy to take out of that.
So delete the rest of the.
Yeah.
I think if we're going to have a small working group, it should be time limited. And did I see something there?
Design for the May SAP
By the
meeting.
May SAP.
No, January, February, March. No. What do you need? March. Yeah, what do you need? How long is May, or can we make it March? Is that too soon? Direction.
Leave it at March.
You've got like May at the moment, or can
I'll leave it at May.
May?
Mr. Willsmore, is that reasonable, or could we tighten that up? I think.
We've got March SAP meeting, we've got May SAP meeting, so I'm looking for.
Okay.
Leave it as May. If it comes into March, we'll bring it back in March. But yeah, depending on discussions with Dit, on what our options are, we'll probably.
I just think it's important, as you know, time is of the essence always. So, if there was to be a working group, they could just get on with that job and report back. I would have thought quite quickly.
Can I also suggest the budget process starts in March? So if there are projects you're looking to capture in the 25-26 budget, we're probably better to look at the March meeting rather than the May meeting.
Yeah. So drop the May and put March in.
It is for next year.
As Mr. Willsmore said, if he gets it done by March, you bring it back at March, but just that's the motion that's on the table. Suggest it's probably fair, and if it gets done quicker, all good.
Right, so I have a mover and a seconder. Is there any question? Yep, councillor Dennis.
Interesting discussion. It's obviously an issue that we've talked about for a long time. My fear is, and I'll be fascinated to see, I'm going to vote in favour of the working group, that we'd have a direct clash between the community's needs and what DIT will accept. So I think we're going to, as long as the working group doesn't come back with a design that completely is never ever going to happen. Like protuberances are, my feeling is that if we want a crossing, we have to have protuberances. And I think the truck pull-off thing is never going to happen, but that's my feeling. They won't allow that to happen. So my only statement would be that the working group is mindful of DIT's outcomes, and that we don't come back to us this meeting with something that's never going to happen. That's the only thing I'd like to say.
Yeah, I'd support Councillor Dennis's comments there. Just want to make sure before we say yay or nay, is there 3 people that are in the chamber that are wanting to be the 3 people? Is there 4, just in case there's 4, or there's only 2? So if you got is there, so.
Okay. Sure. Mayor, did you want to say something?
With the mover and seconder's endorsement, I would like the word May removed and March inserted. I think to have some timeliness around getting the job done.
I'm very happy with that. I guess I would just put May because didn't understand what the time limits dealing with DIT might be, and also if we need to go back to the consultant. But if that can be tightened up to March, certainly I think everybody's ideas can be included. No worries by then.
Okay. Can we make just that amendment, even though it's been moved and seconded, Trevor? Can we move that?
Yeah.
Just change that word to March?
Move in a second, you can
Yep,
move.
mover and seconder happy to make it March? Yep.
You're going to have to amend, come back to the meeting if the decision hasn't been able to, you're going to be just having discussions with DIT.
Progress.
Yeah, and you're going to be doing some progress reports. if it looks like it's going to go past March, we're going to have to go back and re-look at this and change it again to extend it out? Or is it just easy just keeping it in May and then just...
Ready for March it comes, and if it's not, it's not.
I think that these people don't need that. They don't need to be micromanaged. If May's included and March happens, all the better. These people don't need to be micromanaged.
I agree. Totally agree.
May's much better. With respect.
Okay.
The hold up won't be with the group, it'll be with DIT. That's where the.
Councillor Chairman.
Yeah, speaking for the motion as the intent behind it, I'd like to be part of the committee. I'm happy if others are better, but I'd say nearly as simple as Mr. Willsmore giving questions on the comments raised today, what can and can't be done, and maybe having some really good visuals with a cup of coffee out the front of the Lucendale Cafe once with some people that the Lucendale representatives round up. And I think that we just tell them, a lot of people could actually, when they've got some visuals, they could actually make decisions a lot clearer, and we'll know what can and can't be done. If the protuberance have to be moved a little bit further away from the intersection, or they have to come out a little bit more so that we don't sort of get rid of the middle bit. But I think there were 3 or 4 key points there that could be investigated. And to me, it's a simple one-off meeting in front of the cafe at Lucendale with visuals, after Mr. Willsmore's perhaps got the answers of what can and can't be feasible, because I agree with Councillor Dennis, there's no point giving them a wish list that's not achievable. So we say these are the parameters, but we've tried to minimise the obstructions. So I'm supportive of the motion, which can be quick and tidy up and not ongoing.
Direction, are we keeping it as March or?
I'm in the hands of the administration about what is the most appropriate thing. I wanted it to have a time limited, and so if May is more practical, let's put May, because I don't want to be going round and round, but I just need it to be time limited.
We've already made our suggestions. It's up to you guys to sort out what you want to do.
We want to do the 3 elected members in this same motion, or is that a next motion separate? So we can get that sorted.
You decide what you want to do, we'll do it.
Separate? Okay. We have a mover and Councillor Moore.
Look, I know I am going to speak against it, probably be the only one in the room. The only comment I will make is why do we go to consultation? This is like another mini consultation, basically inviting people to have coffee with you out the front of a shop. So our consultation process, to me, looks flawed. The community are fed up with our consultation process. They don't actually believe in our consultation process. This is another example of it. So all the people that contributed to the original consultation, we're now going to pull in a few people within the community and then listen to their thoughts rather than the process we went through originally. So again, consultation with the ANZ Bank, we went to that. There was people in the chamber that voted against it and purchasing it. The North Parklands, I'm thinking this group is going to go back to consultation with that again. Our consultation is flawed, and this is just another example of why.
Right, so the first motion, which is that a working group consisting of 1 member for council administration and 3 elected members is formed to provide input into the Musgrave Ave upgrade and present an amended 70% design to the May SAP meeting. Moved Councillor Goodman, seconded Councillor Rayner. Can I have a show of hands? Who of those are in favour? Those against? Carried. Now, if we want to take care of the elected members for that in the next motion, so we can get this happening. So the following elected members are nominated. Councillor Goodman. Nominate Councillor Goodman. Nominate yourself. Councillor Turner. Councillor Rayner. You'd like to be nominated? Yep.
No capacity.
Any others?
Got 3. I'm sure if anybody else wanted to be there, they could be.
No, they can't, because that's the whole, it's the way you
Working
had
group
to
is
ask.
those that are in the working group.
Yes, sir.
That'll become a bigger than being a group.
Are we, Abby and Councillor Goodman and Councillor Rayner, are you moving? Have a show of hands, those, oh, the admin, okay, do we need to nominate the admin? Or,
No.
no, we have to?
What is it then?
Okay, no worries. Show of hands, those in favour? Carried.
Chair, thank you, through the chair. So the working group, what will the format of their report look like? So their discussions, we don't have a chairman of the working group, but I'd just like to suggest that one of the group, sorry, you go.
I suggest all working groups, they're not a Section 41 committee, so Daniel will be the chair. He'll organise meetings, he'll gather comments, a report will come back through, a report from Daniel. So it's just gathering information, gathering thoughts, and so it'll come back through an officer report. So working group is really an extension of administration to a degree, just to help us and advise on how to get from A to B to C or whatever. Like I said, yep, good.
Excellent. Rightio, we'll move on. Agenda item 5.3, Botanic Working Group.
And do you wish to recommend that further development of the designated gravel pull-off areas along Gum Avenue not undertaken and the informal areas remain the same?
That was deleted.
I suggest we leave that and do the working group and come back.
Okay.
Working group, do it.
Otherwise, you're already starting to make decisions, so you then don't need your working group.
Okay. 5.3, Botanic Working Group. Mr. Wismore, is that you again?
Yeah, so we had a meeting of the Botanic Working Group. We met out on site at Boston Reserve and did a walk around, which was beneficial. A couple of recommendations with the notes provided. So there's a number of recommendations that I'll let Councillor Crossley read out.
Okay. So the first recommendation is it's recommended that the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee that the trees at 10 Pallant Close, Naracoorte, be removed at council's cost due to medical grounds in accordance with the policy, and no reinstatement on different species of trees at this stage due to existing avenue of trees to maintain the streetscape. So, big mouthful. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goodman?
I'm happy to move that. I can see a few slightly puzzled faces in the room. So this has been a long discussion with the Botanic Working Group, and these trees have, there's 3 of them, have been causing health concerns for the residents directly outside the piece property. They're directly outside, and we have been provided medical grounds that it's reasonable to remove these trees, which is in line with the policy. The decision of the working group was that the owners would be happy to have new trees put out the front of their property, but the decision of the working group was that that would interfere with how the streetscape currently looks with the type of trees that are already there, and so the decision is to not replace with new trees.
Questions? Councillor Turner? Second. Any other questions? Show of hands, all in favour? Carried. And the next recommendation is that it is recommended to the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee that the 2 trees alongside 7 Gum Avenue, Naracoorte, are not removed. Councillor Goodman?
Happy to move that too.
Happy to move that. Did you want to speak to it at all?
There were photos provided, and I think it's my understanding that we did get arborist advice, and that whilst there are some branches that go out, they currently have no safety concern or fear of them dropping, and so with the mindset of trying to retain as many trees as possible, it was decided that they should not be removed.
Councillor Dennis.
Not the first time this tree has had a gun pointed at it in the history of council that I've been here. But we gave it a reprieve last time, and I support continuing. It's a pretty awesome tree, especially the one around the corner.
Councillor Maguire.
If I could speak against the motion, I did send elected members some photos. I understand that it doesn't break anything to do with the policy. It's not damaging any infrastructure, but we have got two large gum trees, I think half a metre from the fence line. Would we plant gums as street trees now? No, we wouldn't. Are those trees going to get bigger? Yes, they are. There is branches actually going over the ratepayers' fence. So if this doesn't go through tonight, he will put a letter in and ask that all the branches on the one side are cut back to his fence line. If you actually look at the trees, that will leave a fairly one-sided, especially the second photo, a fairly not top-heavy, side-heavy trees, which I think is, I mean, if you have a look how close that is to his fence line, would you want a gum tree that big hanging over your house? So although it doesn't, it's not with the tree policy, it's not causing any damage at this stage. I would just hope some common sense would come in and ask yourselves, would you be happy if that was hanging over your house? I wouldn't be. I urge council to remove them, please.
Thank you. I agree completely with Councillor Maguire. If that was my house, I'd be very annoyed. If we look at what's happening in Adelaide, there's policies coming in where there's references to trees of significance. As these get bigger, they'll possibly be harder to remove. And I didn't realise it was probably going to be as contentious as it is tonight. But if it was my house and that was next to my house, I would want them gone, absolutely. And if we get on with it now before they get bigger, they can be possibly replaced with something more appropriate for the setting.
I support both comments. I wouldn't be supportive of, I wouldn't be happy having the trees like that big, that close to the house. So I won't be supporting the motion. That's there.
Councillor Turner.
I'm the same. One, I think it's ridiculous having two trees that are going to grow almost together, create a problem together. But I've seen examples of this in Adelaide where residents have tried to get a tree of significance removed, and it's just gone way past common sense. And I couldn't support the motion to retain those trees. I think it was my property. I'd agree with previous councillors' comments that they should be removed.
Councillor Downwood.
They're going to be a problem. They're fine at the moment, but what are they going to be like in 25 years' time?
I see.
Okay, Councillor Goodman.
Can close?
Did you second it, Councillor Dennis?
Yes, I did, yes.
Sorry, we missed that bit. Okay, yep.
I hear the concerns of the other elected members. The decision was made in line with the policy. So if there's a feeling that these trees are not appropriate, then maybe we should be reviewing the policy to give better direction on it.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. It's moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, those who are in favour? Those against? Motion is lost.
We'll be able to move a amendment or
Move a new motion.
I'll please recommend that the two gum trees alongside 7 Government Avenue are removed at council's expense.
On council land, aren't they?
Yeah. I just thought I'd put, do we have to put council's expense? But yeah, you should.
Is there a need for that motion?
It's not always a council expense. In accordance with policy, residents can pay for the removal of trees on council land.
Okay, so we have motion on the table moved by Councillor Maguire. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Turner. Any discussion? Put put that motion to the room. That is recommended that the 2 trees along 7 Gum Ave at Naracoorte are removed at council expense. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried.
We don't necessarily need to address the policy or because we are allowed to do exceptions to the policy from time to time. So
Also suggest, it's only for future thought, that there would be God knows how many properties where there are trees on our footpaths of similar or bigger all across town, so you may get inundated with similar requests because we've just got hundreds of them probably, if not thousands around town. I'd suggest they're in pretty well the same situation.
Yeah, can I?
So it's just an observation.
Can I add to that too? And I'm not saying that the people didn't have a reaction to the trees that we removed in the previous motion, but we have opened a door there to say anybody that wants a tree removed can actually go down that path as well. I think we just have to take each job on its own merit.
I recognise that. It's just, when something opens, keep the door open. A lot of people tend to come in. So.
Right, moving to the final recommendation from the Botanic Working Group that is recommended to the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee that the picnic area, the boundaries/fence line of Boston Reserve, Cadgy Road, Naracoorte be cleared for fire prevention and targeted weed control and pest control rabbit program be implemented. So there needs to be any discussion. Is there any questions? Mayor?
Financial implications of removing a fence. You're talking about fence removal in this particular? No,
Just clearing vegetation off the fence line, so.
Hiding it up.
Yep. So, yeah, costs haven't been reviewed. If it gets supported, Mr McCrosty's team will review it and provide a cost for the next annual budget.
Councillor Goodman?
I'll move it as written.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Maguire? Any discussion? Put the motion to the room. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6.1, so these are reports for information. We have the information there from Mr Willsmore on the Dickinson Road comparison. I'm sure everyone has read through it. Are there any questions to Mr Willsmore? Councillor Grundy?
Look, I think it's been a worthwhile discussion. Having the discussion, that's a good report. I mean, it goes into the financial implications and what have you. I'm relatively satisfied that the road's in good condition and that if it was compromised or deteriorated quickly, I'm sure that council would find its way cleared to improve the road at relatively short notice if they needed to. So in the meantime, look, I'm happy with where it's at, but it's been a good discussion, and I probably would reserve the right to revisit it in the future if we needed to.
Coming from the councillor that lives on the road, that's a good
Actually, Councillor Ryland initiated the conversation without my input at all.
Any other questions for Mr Willsmore? It's a good comparison to have. As said, good to have the dollar figures there for reference. If not, we will go on to item 7. Questions with notice. Councillor Goodman, do you want to?
Thank you. This one's been a long time coming as well. I actually first put this for the SAP meeting back in May last year when we had discussions at Council and at the SAP about the effectiveness of our recycling programs and the things that can and can't be recycled through that. There is a privately owned recycling business called Banish, and the Brad, I think, is Banish Recycle, and I've actually forgotten the acronym, but it essentially can be done at a home scale or a business scale, and there's, hopefully you had a chance to look at the website, it's quite a comprehensive list of things that can be recycled through that's not able to be recycled through roadside curb recycling, and I just thought that it would be a good opportunity to introduce the community and constituents to this program. I'm cautious that we don't want to be setting it up in a way that makes people think that we're going to be doing it as an ongoing program, but you can buy big bins. I thought we could put them in the office here or in the library. Maybe we could get some schools involved, and it provides awareness to our constituents about how else they can do recycling of different items if they are interested. So I didn't put it as a motion because I thought that we'd be better off having a discussion about it, and I'm interested in thoughts about how we might do a communication campaign to alert people to it.
Excellent, thank you. Mayor?
I watched the video and I found it quite fascinating. It's an in-house thing that you can do, and we're talking about small items, within the household, and it may actually have implications generationally, because you're doing it on the bench and not sort of in the bin, so to speak. So it may have some effect generationally. I wonder whether we shouldn't have a small budget allocation for next year, to try and, promote, however we'd be advised well by the administration on how we would go about the introduction of the notion, I imagine, to the households of the district council, and, this is what may be possible.
Councillor
I'm not sure how I feel about this. I watched the video, I was impressed too, but to me it feels more like it'll be a terrific program to run through a lot of schools around Australia, both primary and secondary, based on what Mayor Ross's comments because I think as a project, children would be collecting these things at home, bringing them to school, putting them in the bin, and it would be educational for future or current future generation. I'm just not sure where it sits with us, and I think Councillor Goodman's asking us to do a trial to see to me, I'm not saying it doesn't fit with us, but it feels like it fits with the education system really nicely, and maybe it's something we should be advocating for as part of this. That's my thought.
If I can respond, I don't disagree with that, but as we know, schools have so many things that they're asked to implement and fund, and so I thought that, and I'm happy to take feedback on this and put it forward as a budget consideration for next year as a way to move it forward, and maybe we ask for interest from schools who would like to participate. The costs aren't high, but when you're in a school program, it's still something that you need to budget for, and maybe trial isn't how I was thinking of it. I was thinking of it more as an education and awareness campaign that we did for a short period of time, being very clear that we wouldn't be continuing to fund it on an ongoing basis, but as a way of introducing people to the program.
communicating it to the wider audience that it is actually available, because I wouldn't have known it was available unless you'd sent it through. So I have no issues with that at all.
So a question for Mrs. Collins, around community engagement. Josie, is this something that, you would do within your department, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. We could certainly work with education sites, not just the schools, but kindergarten, childcare, all those sort of places within our community. Bandage Brad actually has a lot of resources as well that we can use. So I could easily work with them, and yeah, it would be very easy to get the word out.
A further question, would there be something that would be within your budget?
Oh, very possibly. Well, we did used to have a budget allocation for the garage sale trail, which was a similar concept in a way, because it was encouraging people to reuse and recycle. And obviously we finished our association with that. Well, this was the first financial year. So it could well happen.
Thank you, Mrs. Collins.
Pleasure. Always happy to accept more money.
Is there more discussion, or do you want to keep that piece just bubbling away in the background with Ms. Collins, and we can
continue the conversation and put it as a budget item for next financial year.
Lovely. There's no motions on notice. Is there any questions without notice?
Am I going to accept it, Councillor
I
Dennis?
commend Councillor Goodman's use of the questions with notice, and I'm ashamed to say that I'm asking a question without notice. I just had some queries from ratepayers around the connectivity between the start of our new walking trail off the end of Haynes Edwards Road out to the caves and the middle of town. So if you're standing in the middle of town, how do you know off the end of that Pistol Club Road, Haynes Edwards Road, there's a walking track? There are signage. Is the signage in the town is there? I'd just like to explore the opportunity to increase that linkage, because I think if we put a road counter on that track, you'd get more sheep than human beings going down there at the moment. I think there's a real gap there out to the caves. That road's pretty awesome, that track. And I think at the moment there's a gap there. So I just suggest that we, maybe at the next SAP meeting, we might explore as a group, and I'll certainly do this myself, go away and suggest things to administration in writing, how we bridge that wayfinding gap between the middle of town and the start of that caves linkage. Is that all right? Chairperson? Yours is probably naughty.
Well, are you asking another question? Hang on, we'll just finish that one. Do you want to respond to any of that, or you've got all that?
Councillor Dennis has asked to have a review in the next SAP meeting. We can, so just off the top of my head, there's signage in 55 Ormerod next to Foodland, so there's signage there that identifies the Caves Trail. It starts in Memorial Drive, so there's further trail head marker in Memorial Playground in the nature play there. And then, signage, wayfinding signage all the way through. So certainly we can look at improved connection from the CBD.
Do we need to minute that as a question without notice? Or happy to just...
Can I suggest that I bring it with a question with notice with some suggestions to the next meeting and take the pressure off the administration, as we already have the wayfinding?
Great suggestion. Thank you. So you've got a question without notice?
I do
Councillor
too,
Ross?
through the chair to Mr Wilson as well, and you probably can't answer this tonight. Just two concerns. Premier Drive, we're about to spend just under $1 million on reconstructing that road. So my first concern, you probably can't answer it, but if that road is approximately 15, 20 years old and we're about to spend $1 million on it now, my first question is, if the unstable, active soil creates havoc, destroys this road as well, what is our plan as a council after this? But my other concern is if there is development starting at the end of Premier Drive, is that correct?
This land's been submitted for review.
Is the not the contractor, the developer, do they have to build their road to the same standards that we are rebuilding Premier Drive to now, so we're not down this same path in 15 years' time where a road has fallen to pieces and we have to redo the whole thing?
Yeah, so from a planning point of view, it's certainly strengthened. So we need to review and make sure we're happy with the plans that have been submitted for the development. So that we'll take that in consideration. They do their own engineering, including geotechnical assessments and the like, come up with their pavement design. Obviously compare it to what we're doing on Premier Drive, so then we need to be happy with it. So it doesn't get signed off until council's happy with it.
Okay.
They have a period of liability they're responsible for. It doesn't extend to 20 years' time, so if the road does deteriorate in that time, council will be left with it. So,
So council would put some restrictions on it. It can't just be built as a normal road, obviously, in that area, as we've seen. So council would put restrictions on that it has to be built to a certain...
Yeah, so we approve it. It is fairly reactive soils there, so we will review the design compared to what we're doing on Premier Drive. So that's certainly strengthened what's there 20 years ago, whenever that was constructed. So yeah, we have oversight of the design when it gets submitted.
Answer your question. Councillor Grundy.
A topic for next SAT meeting, just referring to the letter from Mrs Sue Bennett and Envirotech and vacuuming out gum nuts and that sort of thing, which could be a hazard. Is that something that needs addressing as far as how many passes that might receive in a year from a budget perspective, and are there other areas which would warrant additional attention there? I wonder. Could we bring that up in a SAP situation? Unless Mr. Smart can answer it tonight.
No, we can provide an answer, but I'll suggest the letter received, there's a very similar letter received back in 2 years before.
Right.
Which you may not have seen because it doesn't necessarily come to elected members. So the letter is a cut and paste from there. She's indicated a lot of issues that occurred back then that are the same, which is impossible. As in circumstances, concrete trucks, if you go for an action inspection of the road, the curb's almost clear.
Okay.
And we do it on a 3-monthly basis, and we believe that's adequate.
Well, I just read from the letter that Councillor Crosling had swung into action and hurried up a couple of extra vacuums and problem solved.
I don't think that didn't occur. That's so quite a bit of the letter is lacks a lot of fact.
Okay.
And if you go for an inspection, which I have probably 3 times since we got the letter, the curb is a lot clearer than mine is, and lack of other bits and pieces on the road, including price and union. So I'd suggest it's perhaps not an issue. But if you want to continue to raise it, you can. That's no issue.
There could have been other situations in the township which warranted additional attention as well. I don't know.
We swept it early December, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Which is part of the cycle.
Councillor Orange, you have a question without notice?
I've got 3, I'll give them all at once. Roach Road, there's been 48 trees planted, only looks like 4 have survived.
Sorry?
Roach Road.
Roach.
Yes.
And I just wondering what's going to happen about them, if they're going to be replaced. And I'm just wondering if the flooding issue in Laurie Crescent, if that's been addressed. And I'd like to know what's going to happen with the town clock.
And the town?
The town clock. How often does it work? There's a drive into town. That's 3 questions, thank you.
Okay, Roach Road, yep, that's been raised with us about some of those trees not looking very healthy, so we're investigating that one. They've still got enough moisture in them, but we're undertaking further inspections of those trees. The flooding on Laurie Crescent, we've responded to the property owners, identifying that some of their development conditions haven't been met when they constructed their properties, and provided Mr McCrosty's contact details if they wanted to discuss that any further with them. Not sure if you've had any further response. And the town clock, I'll have to take that one on notice unless Mr McCrosty can answer.
Yeah, we've done some investigation in regards to the town clock, and one side is working relatively well on time, the other side is problematic. We haven't been able to source a local electrician to address the adjustment of the clock. It comes down to the mechanism. We're trying to get a contractor from Adelaide, the closest contractor that has the ability to adjust the clock, which, as you can probably understand, will probably be a significant cost. So, yes, the question is how often does the clock work, and is there still a desire or need for the clock? It's probably a decision that needs to be made by council at some stage. But yes, it does cost quite a bit to maintain. And I guess today's generation, we've got mobile phones or watches on these days anyway. So.
True.
And probably 2 years ago, I worked with the Lions Club, which that's where the clock come from, and they agreed at the time if we wanted to move that clock, though they would be supportive of doing so. So that's probably a consideration council needs to have of potentially put it at Pioneer Park, which is a Lions Park essentially. So they had agreed that it's problematic. It was donated historically. Is it best suited there? Does it have a purpose? Do people use it? It's a whole lot of questions, and do we go to great expense on fixing something that perhaps is not useful and probably doesn't have a lot of historical significance?
Fantastic piece of Art Deco clockwork.
Perhaps it can go digital.
Something like that.
The interesting part has been out of whack for quite a while. We've only had one raised concern, so it probably tells you how many times people are looking at the clock too.
No more questions without notice? Kathleen? Thank you.
On a question, did we get some finalisation on this flooding up near the churches, as in we've pushed it back on the residents for not meeting building standards, or have we done some work on managing water? Is that something that we need to bring up at a meeting or answer now? Or
Provided a response to all elect members previously, so there's a section of curb there that's lifted from a tree root that was programmed to be replaced next financial year, so wanted to take that small section, but from discussions staff had with residents, it was during that November storm event, which was a 1 in 500 year event, so they can address some of their on-site solutions would assist with some of the water movement, and we'll take care of that curb under our curb maintenance, and that will continue the water down Laurie Crescent.
I did inspect one of the back fences after that storm event, and there was nowhere for that water to go. So it hit that back fence, which I think they actually had to have. Yeah. So that cheap colour-bond fencing just was basically.
Trevor?
It also suggests part of the challenge is when we undertake visits that if the same household doesn't agree with each other, members in the household, it makes any rectification or decisions difficult. So there's some residents here have had discussions where they don't agree with each other what the cause is, so it makes it hard for us. That's just an observation.
We'll move on to motions without notice, which is obviously none of those, and number 11, matters to be considered in confidence. We'll end the live stream. For Josie to do that.